The fintech industry is at once an increasingly prevalent and increasingly invisible force in many, if not most, of human societies. Indeed, the fintech industry seems to be growing horizontally. While there are some companies that aim to build a quote unquote full contact relationship with their clientele, a growing number of them are building infrastructure that takes an elegant backseat to the lives of their customers. Technology that is as intuitive and easy to use as breathing air. However, in this kind of an environment, the balance between being at once seen and invisible is quite a challenge, particularly for young companies. Add coronavirus to the mix, and the path forward for young fintech companies becomes even more complex. Recently, finance magnates sat down with Spiros Margaris, venture capitalist and founder of Margaris Ventures, to talk about the relationship between building brand and user experience, as well as the effects that the coronavirus will have on the fintech industry.
Spiros, I want to thank you once again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us.
It's my pleasure, Rachel. Thanks
Yeah,
for having me.
absolutely. So I know who you are. I'm a big fan of you, but can you tell people who might not know who you are a little bit about yourself?
Of course. I'm a venture capitalist, invest primarily in fintech companies, insurtech, and cybersecurity, AI. And I'm a senior advisor in many of those startups which I'm involved in. The biggest one is VFox Group, which is the biggest insurtech company in Europe, which just raised uh, end of last year 225 million.
Okay.
So lucky us, and I'm one of the I'm ranked one of the top influencers lately again, number one in
Yeah.
fintech, and yeah. So that's in a nutshell about me.
Yes.
And
So
people can look up things on my Twitter handle, which or that's
yeah, so at Spiros
website.
Margaris, right? Or
Exactly.
yes. Okay, great. So I want to ask you a little bit about yourself. How did you find yourself in this particular profession? What drew you into
Oh,
this
I
world?
see. I primarily came from my past was in asset management, hedge funds.
Mhm.
I lived 20 years in the States. I had two startups, which also crashed during the dot-com area. So I know how that is.
Mm,
And and then many years ago, I left my company where I was a partner in Switzerland and looked for new opportunities to invest in startups. And then fintech slowly started to come to the scene. I mean, fintech, it wasn't named fintech before, always
mm.
existed, financial tech companies. But and then I was probably at the right place at the right time, I guess, you know. And but besides of asset management, looking at companies as a portfolio manager, as an investor, I had my own startups, my failures. I know what it means. I had my share of failures and successes, and I think that that's part of my success story now. I mean,
Is that you've had this experience, going through sort of like the best and the worst of the fintech industry.
yes, and when you talk to startups, you this kind of experience flows in. But I mean, people take me also as a brand ambassador for their startups because I mean,
Hmm.
my huge audience. I have over 50 million readers per year on Twitter alone. I think that probably helps those startups to get a higher brand profile because there's so many startups out there, good ones, a lot of good ones.
Hmm.
But if your voice isn't heard, it's like radio stations. There are a lot of bands, but if the radio station doesn't play your music, then it's probably hard to get a big following.
Right, exactly. So what advice would you give to new startups who, might not have a connection to somebody like you, to where, have good ideas, a good team, good plan, but just don't have the audience that they need?
I mean, it takes more than just the audience. I mean, I'm not involved in any startup that doesn't have clients because otherwise it's just an idea, and it's
Hmm.
very important for me to realize that those startups know how to sell the solution. Because once they sell to clients, it means there are some people who believe what they do has value to their business.
Hmm.
But once you do this, you have to check, or you should know your industry. If you're in the fintech industry or AI industry, you have to check who are those thought leaders, who or advisors who can help us grow further. Because you realize sometimes they grow, they're very good, but then they think they don't need anyone. It's just like, oh, we're successful, we have a PR company, etc. But that's just part of the game, And
Yeah.
you can't buy journalism, you can't buy good articles. I can't do it either. I can't call a journalist and say write this. It's if what we do is interesting enough, they might call me because I'm very prominent. But I can't approach them and say, hey, would you like to push this? I would never do this because you have to protect the integrity of the journalists. And besides, they wouldn't allow it. But in my case, I have a lot of investors, a lot of journalists follow me. So chances are that people might read a story they like, and say, hey, maybe we should look them up. But it's like it's very complex, It's the efforts those startups give. The bigger they get, it's just they're playing a different league, and then you need to, thinking of different things like public relation companies, maybe, but also people who have a brand who can help them enhance their brand not among just clients, but just globally. Because sometimes you read something and say, oh, that's very interesting. Let me look it up. And if you connect yourself with some of those top guys, the chances are big that you get the right exposure. That's in a nutshell again. If that makes any sense. But I just think it's hard for them. You're a tech guy, you did a great job, you worked very hard. It's sometimes hard for them to see the value of people like me, which is okay because, it's like if you don't see the value, there isn't any value for them.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter to me because I'm so busy anyway. But
right.
but you need to work with people where there's a mutual respect for each other's efforts and work and contribution.
I think that's so wonderful. That's so fabulous. That's not something that we talk about, so much in the fintech kind of cryptocurrency, AI, blockchain space or whatever, and I guess across the corporate world is, there's been this sort of advent of quote unquote soft skills, making personal connections and, developing these kinds of personal relationships in the industry and with clients as well. But still, I think maybe this is something that the coronavirus is highlighting, the importance of these relationships, but it's still something has a long way to go, I think.
Absolutely. And, and it's like a soccer team or any team. I'm not a big soccer guy, but, I usually use the soccer example because they're different players with different skills and they only can win together. And you have to give everyone the appreciation of what they contribute.
Right.
And they will do their part to make you proud that you trusted in them. It's like, it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to ask you also a little bit about, somebody who is in your position as an influencer with somebody who has as many followers as you do. You spoke for a minute earlier about maintaining the integrity of journalism, and that's also kind of a two-way street. Both the journalists are kind of have this code to only cover things that are quote unquote worth covering, and that companies shouldn't say, hey, like, look at my great product, why don't you talk about how great it is? But somebody who's in your position specifically, what are kind of the written or unwritten rules of operating?
I see everything. I see people promoting things which are clearly promoted and they don't indicate in any way that they get paid or advertised, because to get paid, it's okay. But you have to, besides the laws against it, you have to indicate that if you rave about a company, either you're not involved at all or you're involved in it. You
Hmm.
know, it's just, I think that's integrity. I mean, if I rave about one of my companies, naturally people will see, I will write at the end of the article that I'm involved in that company, and people see it in my profile. It's very, very clear everywhere.
Yeah.
But I read also about other companies which I'm not involved in. But if moment I get paid, which I don't really get paid for stuff like that, you should tell people that, or it's at least should say sponsored by, which is the same thing. You know, sponsored by a big tech,
Right.
which is fair. You know, that's the integrity,
Yeah.
I think.
Uh,
But if a journalist calls you at the Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, anyone, and asks you a question, then it's them asking, you know, and that you will say, that's how we do it at this company which I'm involved in. It's not selling; it's just a fact, and
yeah.
somebody else.
And as somebody who's a social media influencer, sort of what do you think, and I think I have to say, I think you do a fantastic job of being a connector. You know, that's how we were introduced, was because you found me, which I thank you for very much. But can you talk a little bit about sort of like the best practices that you've adopted for ethical behavior as an influencer?
What I always do, I mean, I always did, and I think that's my success story. I think I look up who wrote the article,
Mm,
and I look. I mean, that takes time. It's not only I read the article, I look it up because sometimes it's not so clear on the website. Its name is there, but sometimes
right.
there's no link to the social media connection of the journalist.
Hmm.
I place it because it's the person who wrote the article, which I found interesting to share
Hmm.
and to give credit. And
Hmm.
it's I think that's very important to give credit. If I find it, I mean, to 99% or maybe 98%, I find always who wrote it.
Hmm.
And then I give credit. And that's, I think, the way to do it. It's like somebody did a beautiful work or somebody cooked something nice. They say, hey, this person did it. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I just pointed it out because I found it interesting. And sometimes I even share things. I said it often, I don't agree, but I could be wrong. So basically, I said, it's interesting. Maybe I'm wrong the way I think. Let's
Mhm.
share it and let other people judge, like me, you know. And it's nice because I'm independent. I can allow to do this, you know.
Mhm. Okay.
Kind of out, and I try to. I'm very courageous also to put things out that I don't agree on. I mean, I will not put something out that hurt other people. I mean, but opinions, I don't have to be mine. And it's very important to read stuff you don't agree.
Mm.
Because otherwise it's like it's a one-way street which can lead you to the wrong path, you know. And one trick I have when I look at startups, I don't study them at the beginning. Because the longer I spend on understanding the business model, etc., the more I invested time and effort, which at the end I might just like them because I spent so much time on it,
Okay, that's really interesting.
you know. And I
Yeah.
rather look at it and say, "Oh, I like this idea." Then I'm almost like a consumer, and if I like it as a consumer, then it's much more interesting for me because
Okay.
most people have theories about something and they wrote books about it, whatever. And even if they realize they're wrong, they can't leave their path. And for me, I don't want to commit myself to an opinion and just let it happen. You know, if it doesn't resonate, then it's maybe not something for me.
Okay. So on that note, I want to talk about what has piqued your interest lately. What is exciting to you at this particular moment in time? You know, any particular trends or companies? What do you find
Yeah.
exciting?
I don't have a specific topic. I think it's a mix. I always say it's a mixture of
Yeah.
fintech and tech AI. I don't have a specific thing because I mean everyone talks about AI.
Right.
Uh, no, no, obviously, and we're still early.
Mm.
I don't see. I can't say. You know exactly. When I present, I have this now. It's so good. It's fresh. It's like we both have the same ingredients. Like, you know, we all know if we both had a startup, we both know this. AI, maybe it's a fintech company, so it's in that industry, Internet of Things, and. The technology is out there,
Mm.
but everyone uses it differently. Same like a cook. If we do both had a restaurant, we would buy the same thing, but maybe your thing would taste better because you mix it differently,
Hmm.
present it differently in the kitchen, you cook it differently. And the same thing with technology. There's no such a trend anymore. It's just what's out there, everyone knows.
Okay.
I mean, every seal. It's a question of how will you use it? How will you make of this ingredient a great restaurant that people come to eat, and when they leave, they might recommend it. Same thing with the fintech company, InsurTech. You have all the ingredients, big data, AI, all the stuff. How do we mix it so that we bring value to the customer, and the customer says, "Oh, this company, I know, let's push something. I'm on Wayfox Group, where the biggest insurtech in Europe, which I'm involved in, is a great company." That's the way to think of. It's not about trends anymore. It's all out there.
Right.
Maybe
Okay.
maybe we advance a little bit on AI, but at the end, it's just like finding at the market a new pepper or something, and say, oh, maybe we add this to the food. But at the end of the day, it's the chef, the cook, and the team that differentiates.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean,
Like
y-
restaurants.
like restaurants, exactly. So do you see like has it always been this way? Like, has it always been a matter to you, in your opinion, of what are people doing rather than like, oh, like, we have the latest blockchain, AI, other jargony buzzwords and trends and stuff like that. Do you think that, you know, I, I kind of get the sense that this is how you've been operating in the sphere for quite some time, but do you see a change in the discourse more generally around how people are thinking and talking about financial technology companies?
I think we passed the peak.
Okay.
So I think,
Yeah.
but it's a normal thing where people get tired of it or whatever, like
Right.
anything. But I think it's not going to disappear because financial technology, where I consider insurtech and other stuff, and a lot of things in that umbrella included, will never disappear as long as we have digital money.
Mhm.
As long as everything is getting digital, I mean, already, and it's not going to disappear, we
Mm.
will have fintech. So I think maybe it goes just, maybe it won't be as prominent as it used to be in the press, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe it's just big players, if Square does something, Stripe or whatever. But nevertheless, I've been in the business when I had to explain to my friends what I do over and over and over. And
Mm.
point where people know what fintech means, kind of, and it also means a lot of things to different people. I
Yeah.
saw once an article where they asked a lot of venture capitalists, and everyone has a different answer. Maybe it's right. It's what you see in it. For me, it's just technology that enables the financial industry and the consumer to live, to work in terms of to pay bills or to manage wealth or remittances, and then
Yeah.
I think we passed the peak, but what it increases fintech even behind the scene increases in importance. That's something. It's very good we talk about it. A good question, Paul. Although maybe people are less aware it's there,
Mhm.
which is a complement to fintech, because the less obvious it is, the better it is.
Right.
It's like user experience. If you have to read how a phone works, that's not a good user experience. If you pick it up and it works, that's a great user experience.
Right.
The less
Exactly.
thinking you do, the better it is in the B2C.
Mm-hmm.
If I give you
Yeah.
a product, you don't think about it, works, it's well, that's a great user experience. No?
Yeah. 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 Exactly. I mean, the
Like
more sort
breathe.
of it.
It's like breathing air.
Yeah.
Don't think about it. If you don't have it anymore, it's a problem. But you don't think, oh my God, I walked through the street, I breathe air. But that's how I think great user experience, not a fintech in general, any product, uh, Apple products we still have to think about things, but the less we have to think, then it becomes like air. It's there, it helps us live, and
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. If it becomes like air,
If it becomes invisible, yeah.
yes, it's like it's there.
Yeah.
That's user experience. And I think in fintech, I mean, not everything about fintech, obviously. Let's clarify so people are not upset. The B2B has different goals. You know, I think in the B2B, people don't really care about fintech to be like air. In the B2C, yes. The
Okay.
consumer doesn't want to think. He wants just, you know, be. It's almost like the supermarket that Amazon built. Pick up your things, you walk out, it's paid.
Right. Like nothing could be simpler, literally.
Yes, you know, and
Yeah.
that's great user experience. Although San Francisco, New York put laws in place that there should be a cashier still there because some people don't have credit cards, etc. But that's a whole different issue in itself. And I also think something we should write though is, you know, we all against cash. But cash is great. Cash gives you privacy. Cash, imagine now with Corona, we're all locked up. I think we could not imagine that this would have happened many years ago. No? Could you have imagined?
Absolutely. No, even months ago, I wouldn't have imagined that this
No,
was happening. Yeah.
yes. But it's reality.
Mm.
I'm not saying how long it's going to take, whatever. But what about if we don't have electricity for 2 weeks? I mean, something we don't believe this could happen. That means no electricity. How are you going to get the money out of your bank?
Right.
How are you going to pay something? Could
Yeah.
happen. I mean, anything could happen.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, people should, government, and I'm not alone there, government should still, and even Sweden realizes there's a value to cash. As much as I'm a fintech guy and I would like to have things digital, and you know, but I think there's a value to cash. I mean, and just tell people, you know, things you could not even imagine that are happening now to our rights, human rights, civil
Yeah.
rights. We could not have imagined it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one day we don't have electricity for a while. What? Maybe not everyone, but some.
Yeah.
What will happen then?
Right. Exactly. There's no plan in place for that. So
Exactly.
do you see then, like, when you sort of think about the future, do you see a future where cash is always going to exist on
Good
some
question.
level?
I love. Great question, Rachel.
Thanks.
I think maybe not. Maybe
Okay.
not.
Mhm.
Probably not. But I still believe. Then we have to address the issues I said before. What happens? Okay. I mean, there's a way around it. If everyone had a credit card or way of paying digital, and
Mhm.
if that's guaranteed beyond having electricity, you know, even if the chances that we don't have electricity is slim, but what if?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you're so right. Like, a month ago, a year ago, weeks ago, even, like, we never would have expected that we found ourselves in this particular situation with the coronavirus.
I mean, a
Um,
nuclear bomb, I mean, not exploding on the ground, but can cause is electricity, you know, that we don't have electricity. But, you know, that's a very serious topic. But at least if we address it and we know how to circumvent an issue of not having electricity and still know our balance and being able to pay, then I could imagine that we won't have any cash one day.
yeah. And so
It
I
will
wonder, yeah,
happen.
like, um, and I wonder what you think, about, a situation, hypothetical situation in which we might not have any cash, and no way to pay for things, like, would warrant sort of a quick solution, like very quick thinking, and new systems developing, literally immediately. And I think that that's somewhat analogous to what's happening right now with the coronavirus. Like, it's essentially been a stress test for the entire world. Like, we've, so how do you think that this has impacted fintech companies? Like, I know that's a big question.
Of course. You will see that smaller startups, it's going to be harder to get funding.
Okay.
Although the studies from the last financial crisis around 2007, 8, 9, that angel investing increased, funny enough,
Mm-hmm.
and the late stage investing decreased. I think if you don't have enough money for the next 1 to 2 years, at least 1 year, at least, that will be very hard for a startup to survive
Hmm.
because investors probably, whatever money they have, they will probably invest in startups that will survive.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that if you can show your business that you will survive because you will have fewer customers, uh, and you have your expense, your running costs are not as high, your burn rate is manageable.
Hmm.
I think that will attract more investors than if they realize, if you come to them and say, "Oh, coronavirus, we might go under if we don't get money." The fact that you
Okay.
had that will scare off a lot of people anyway. And
Right.
what consequence of this is that even banks will be shaken. But I think big institutions, incumbents, or tech giants, even tech giants are shaken by Corona. I just saw some numbers, Facebook and Google, but that shows it had an impact on their, of course,
Hmm.
advertisement will go down. Some things, even they will suffer. But if you're a big player, you probably will survive and get stronger.
Hmm.
Amazon, Facebook, Google, big banks. And the smaller players, small fintechs, a lot will disappear. A lot of startups will disappear regardless. Uh, Besides that, a lot of them disappear anyway,
Yeah.
because of the nature of the business. The simple rule is 9 out of 10. But even established players, if they hadn't planned to survive a year without any funding, will be tough. And with the consequence of the whole thing is innovation will go down because if there's fewer competition out there, there's no need to innovate as much because
Right.
in a big bank they say, oh, this I won't mention any names because we don't know who's going to go under. But, oh, they disappeared. They suffer. Innovate as much. Why should we spend so much on innovation? Which is wrong thinking, but I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that there's a big risk, also outside of fintech, that these, sort of like mom and pop restaurants, for example, since we were talking about cooking earlier, might go under, especially in the States where Domino's and all of these big pizza chains and whatever are like, we're still out there, we're still hiring, we're still going. Like all of these smaller, more fragile things will sort of disappear.
Domino is a very good example with a positive, not a positive or negative, but Domino has a system in place to check the quality of their pizzas. It's an AI
Yes.
system, and which is kind of a great marketing gag, but there's also control of the quality, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
But now to the Corona, imagine they will use it even further than what they use it now. Is now they check the pizza, is the quality right, are the things in the right place, was it done the right way? But now the same system, AI system, will supervise the employees. Is the social distancing in place? Are all the norms against the corona threat in place? So that's a huge competitive advantage to expand the system which we had for quality control of the pizza to quality control of the restaurant, which at the end of the day, I mean, this is a chain that can invest in that, and it did. But maybe all restaurants one day, sooner or later, will have this in place, even
Hmm.
smaller one, but doesn't mean everyone can afford it. And then yes, this AI system checks the quality, the cleanness, all the stuff that needs to be
Right.
checked. Is somebody sick because they measure their fever, or if they have fever? And so you see there's still innovation happening. I don't know if it's always a good thing in terms of privacy, etc. And as you said beautifully, the small shops, the small restaurants, mom and pop, that make the, the, the ingredient of our society, the net, they will disappear a lot. And that's very sad,
Yeah.
I think, you
I
know.
mean, yeah, I agree that it's yeah, that also what you said about the kind of the changes that will come about as a result of this might also have sort of negative effects on our privacy, that, and then it'll come in through the back door, like the Domino's Pizza quality control AI that checks whether or not employees have a fever. Uh,
And think further. Now we're talking about first pizza, then employees in the kitchen.
mhm.
step is I walk in, it says, you should not walk in, you have fever.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't
Yeah.
thought of it, but it will happen. It's just that, and then maybe I have a little fever. It doesn't mean I have a coronavirus, or maybe not. But it will be a society that will be, it's almost like 9/11. I lived 9/11, and flying changed forever.
Yeah.
Coronavirus, not to over dramatize it, although I mean,
It's pretty dramatic.
no, it is very dramatic.
Yeah.
But it will change our lives beyond Corona.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In terms of privacy, in terms of rights.
Yeah.
And I think if we don't address it correctly, I think there will be an upstorm against it one day because,
Yeah.
we fly, we don't have choice. We have to wait in line to get through this customs, and we got used to it. But maybe we'll get to a lot of things we don't like.
Yeah. I mean, do you see any sort of fintech companies, or even just individuals, influencers like yourself, who are sort of bringing up these topics, as something that needs to be addressed, these concerns about privacy and how our lives will change?
I don't see it by influencers, but I see articles written, I can't recall which journalist. Of course, it is addressed. It's getting addressed more. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad now we address it as we speak.
Yeah.
And if we want advanced technology, we really have to address it. It's like AI. If you talk as a CEO in a small company and say we're going to implement more AI, machine learning algorithms, and we believe it's important to survive in order to. And if you tell your employees of 1,000 people or 100, doesn't matter. You have to be very honest to them, because if you're not honest to them, that maybe some people will lose the job, they won't trust you. And I think we have to give people credit that they understand, even if it hurts.
Yeah, I think that could be it.
No, please.
No, I was just going to say, I think that could be like really possibly a positive culture change, that we're learning as societies to deal with bad news in a way that we can help each other.
And especially, sorry, dry throat. And especially in the business we are, where technology changes people's lives positively and sometimes negatively. I mean, if I look at Amazon, their warehouses, I mean, there's this rumor where people can't even talk to each other. It's all robots moving around. It makes it very inhuman. When you work somewhere like Amazon, the warehouse, and you can't even talk to each other sometimes because everything's so efficient, and it's only a question of time until those people are even taken out of that job. I think those are the issues we will have to address. And reverse the basic income, because otherwise there will be a passive resistance against change.
Okay.
Because people have fears, they have responsibilities to themselves, to their family. And if we don't address it, I think passive resistance will slow down innovation.
I think you're absolutely right. Spiros, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with me.
No, it's my honor, and thank you for the great questions. And I hope I gave some insights.
Absolutely, yeah. Before we go, do you have any announcements that you'd like to share? And can you tell us once again where our listeners and our watchers can find you?
Of course, they can find me on my Twitter handle, Spiros, at Spiros Margaris, or they can find me on my website, Margaris Ventures. Probably you will, if there's an article or whatever, you will provide the link to.
Absolutely, yeah. Okay, Spiros, thank you so much. It's been such a great conversation. I love talking to you.
Thank you.